Our company of the year, Novo Nordisk, isn't the only player in the weight loss drug space. Eli Lilly also has emerged as a major competitor with its type 2 diabetes drug Mounjaro and its new weight loss counterpart Zepbound. We want to take a deeper dive into this competition, into this space. We want to bring in Lee Brown, ThirdBridge Global Sector Lead for healthcare. And we also have Damien Conover. He is Morningstar's Director of Equity Strategy. Plus, we still have Anjali Kamlani and Brian Sazi here sticking around for the conversation. All right, Damien, let me start with you just in terms of the fact that you have now spent years covering this space, the excitement that we've seen around these new weight loss drugs over the last 12 months. Have you seen anything like it before?
You know, it's really unique. We really haven't seen something like this. The drug development space looking at obesity drugs has been a focal point for decades. And we really haven't seen the efficacy until recently with Wegovy and subsequently Zepbound. So you're talking about the ability to reduce weight. Historically, you got sort of in that 5% weight loss. Now you're pushing into the mid-teens and even close to 20%. And that's a massive step change. And it's always dangerous to say this time it's different, but it really does feel like this time it's different for obesity drugs.
Damien, I'm so glad you brought up that point. It is different this time. It does feel different. And I've had others tell me that, really Novo could be credited with sort of creating this obesity market out of thin air. We know decades have been going into the R&D for this. Other companies left the field and then are pivoting back suddenly because of this new demand. Do you think that there's enough room, enough cushion for Novo and Lilly to sort of take over the market once again and go head to head before anyone else shows up?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think the first mover advantage is definitely in Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly's hands. They both have great drugs on the market that will really start the penetration. You think about penetration right now in obesity, it's around 2%, and that's very, very low. And you think about the ability of GLP-1 drugs, that's what Wegovy and Zepbound are. You think about their penetration rates in diabetes. If we can see that mirrored in obesity, you're talking about a huge rampway. And so I think over the next couple of years, this market is really going to be dominated by Novo and Lilly. But like you said, there will be more competition. We're seeing a lot of acquisitions take shape. Roche, Pfizer, Astra, Amgen, all these companies are likely going to be in the market, but not in the next couple of years, more like the next 3 to 5 years. And at that point, competition is going to probably bring down price. You'll probably see market penetration increase. But in the near term, this is Novo and Lilly's market.
Lee, just given where the market could end up here over the next decade, do you think Novo's stock is undervalued?
Can't comment on valuation. I certainly will say that these will be the blockbusters of all blockbusters. Consensus has these drugs going to north of $60 billion over the next five years or so. And as everyone on the panel has commented, that's going to remain a low penetration rate. So I think the future is very bright for all of these companies.
Lee, ultimately, just kind of to add on to that then, what type of additive in terms of growth prospect are you expecting for all of these companies? Is there kind of a multiple that you're layering on over the next year, 2 years, and where that demand curve moves from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you folks said it best. It's anyone's guess in terms of the exact trajectory. What I will say is it's going to be harder and harder for payers to push back in a value-based care mentality. What I mean by that is we're trying to push cost in this country to the lowest setting. So stop having people come into the ICU for heart attacks or stroke or dealing with spine implants or AFib. Go ahead and address this obesity epidemic at its head and look to future competition to drive down pricing. I think it's going to be very difficult for payers to push back on these drugs over the long term, even though it's going to be incredibly costly. I have some other thoughts on that, but I'll turn it back over.
Well, maybe this fits into what you were going to say, but I wonder also about, the prospects for Novo now as having been long just a diabetes company. We know they have other sections of their portfolio, but it has been largely just insulin and diabetes products. Now this opens the door for other sectors, maybe, for a more diversified portfolio for this company?
Well, one of the things I I had a recent conversation with an industry expert, and I think one of the things really benefiting Novo is the fact that they have been in this space for some time. So they have a lot of goodwill built up with the prescribing doctors. And I think that brand comes a long way. I will say that Eli Lilly is a marketing machine. They're doing a bit of unfair comparisons looking at a higher dose of Mounjaro and Zepbound versus Ozempic and Wegovy back when that wasn't approved for 2 milligrams. And I think they're going to use those comparisons until there's a head-to-head to really pound the messaging through key opinion leaders and through direct-to-consumer marketing that Mounjaro and Zepbound have superior blood control and weight loss. And so I think it's going to be an interesting market as it heats up over the next few years.
Damien, do you see anything tripping up Novo next year?
I don't see much tripping up Novo. I think they're very well positioned. We have to get a little bit more granular detail on some of the follow-up studies beyond the weight loss that we've seen. The weight loss looks great. We've seen some top-level data on how well it works in renal impaired patients. That granular data might not be as good, but I think the data probably will be good. That's, one potential challenge, but I don't see too much tripping up Novo. I think, I think the market's so large that Lilly and Novo can both be very successful here. So I don't really think it's going to be a market share game in the near term. I think it's a market expansion story in the near term. So really in the immediate term, Novo looks extremely well positioned. I'd say only potential hiccups along the way could be potential side effects that we haven't seen. If you think about these GLP-1s, they've been on the market for a very long time, but they've been focused on diabetic patients. They really haven't been focused on overweight patients. So there theoretically could be some side effects. I think that risk is low. I think really from a fundamental standpoint, the sales trajectory is very solid for Novo.
All right, well, thanks to Damien Conover and Lee Brown for helping us break down Yahoo Finance's Company of the Year, Novo Nordisk. Again, check it all out on yahoofinance.com. We have a number of feature stories up on the site right now. And of course, our thanks to Anjali Kemlani for leading the charge on this, and Brian Zazi as well.